Hi, everyone, and welcome to part two of our discussion on the Emperor and Empress. This is the Auraborrows podcast. Um, if you haven't seen the part one of this, that's probably fine. I'm going to briefly touch on some of the things that we covered last episode, but yeah. Updates, I guess, we'll start with. So, the last few episodes, I have been talking about some events and markets that I've got going on. So, the Witches Workshop is rescheduled to May 31st. Yeah, we're looking at ways to make it a little more accessible, I think. So hopefully we'll have a good group of people that you can mix and mingle with. So stay tuned for details on that. And yeah, I'm by the time this comes out, I will be on a plane. Gonna be visiting family, so I don't worry, you'll have episodes to keep you busy in the meantime. But when I come back, we've got the Mystic Market, June 3rd, the Square Lemon Market, June 10th, and the Obscura Makers Market on June 11th. So busy, busy, busy. I'm very excited. Planning on making more stuff to bring. And of course, as usual, I will be bringing my cards and stuff. Yeah, it's always a hit. So definitely come out for that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all the updates. All right, let's get into it. So, as I said before, this is part two. Today, we're going to be diving into the Emperor side of this divine couple, this divine counterpart situation. So, last week we talked about the Empress and sort of how she holds this more nurturing kind of energy, and it's a lot about what you can offer in an output kind of situation. And we kind of talked about some unlikely counterparts that aren't really talked about with her. So the Emperor also has some unlikely counterparts, and we'll get into that. But before we really dive into the details of the card, I first want to explain the design of it because I do have a little story, sort of legend, myth attached, which we're going to be talking about a little later. So if you're watching on YouTube, I will be putting it on the screen so you can check that out. If you're just listening, I will describe the image to you. So to start off, I've got it on the wall behind me. So to start off, I have a yellow background. On the side, there's sort of these like vintage florals, and then strips of pink across it just to kind of like cut up the space. And we have a hand at the top and a hand at the bottom offering a rose. And at the center, sort of like the main component of the card, is a close up on a fox's face, just kind of like the eyes. And first of all, foxes are my favorite animal of all time. I can't tell you how long I have um, been a fan of foxes, but I used to see them when I was younger, just in my hometown, and I was just like obsessed with this animal. And then, yeah, it just became like a consistent symbol for me. which eventually led me to look up more on foxes and the symbolism and stuff. And there's a lot of variety in symbolism across different cultures and stuff. So, some good, some bad. They're often seen as sort of like trickster energy, which is fun, you know. I'm a fan of Loki. He's a little tricky guy, so um, why not add to the fun? Um, but yeah, the specific uh, sort of legend that made me put the fox on the emperor card was actually the Japanese legend of uh, the kitsune, um, and sort of this like fox spirit that has the ability to shapeshift. And there was like this legendary story that I learned uh, about this woman named Tamamo Nomai. I might be pronouncing that incorrect. I just read it, so didn't hear the pronunciation. But uh, yeah, she basically is just um, an incredibly beautiful woman who managed to seduce the emperor, um, Emperor Toba, Tabo. Anyways, the emperor at the time, um, and she basically brought on a lot of misfortune because she was, I guess, like a bad kitsune spirit, a nogitsune, as it is called, if they're bad. Um, and yeah, there was this whole thing where she is basically exposed by someone who is suspicious of her and had magic of his own. So he challenged her and, brought to light that she was behind it. She was the malevolent spirit that basically blindly, like, the emperor was blind to sort of her workings and stuff, and she controlled a lot. She was, um, yeah, she was cunning and very intelligent, um, and very able, which are all sort of qualities of the Emperor card. And I just found it interesting that she kind of like, in a way, overpowered this Emperor because of her charms. So I thought it would be cool to incorporate sort of the history of that in the card with the face of the fox. Um, so little anecdote. There's plenty of other representations for the fox, but ultimately the main idea comes down to the fact that they're cunning, very witty, um, and a little mischievous. Um, so the Emperor card can be all of those things. In reverse, it's definitely more of the, maybe not necessarily mischievous, but just sort of this idea of like, where does power take you? Um, Sometimes it's not always good. So something to be mindful of. But yeah. So to kind of do a 180 here, we're going to talk about the counterparts. So obviously, we talked about the emperor being the divine counterpart to the empress, which makes a lot of sense just in the general structure of how emperors and empresses are together. But yeah, it's kind of the flip side of what the Empress is, where it's like a lot of what you can offer. It's sort of this like inflow, generosity, care. Oh, excuse me. Um, the Emperor is more the strict, um, like firm side of things. Uh, it's the energy of like the cutoff, knowing limitations and sort of being, I guess, like a little more diplomatic. I know the emperor is often linked to like a father figure, in the same way that like the empress is like the mama of the major arcana. So, um, yeah, we have like both sides of this traditional parental unit, um, and it creates a balance. I talked about this last week. Sorry if I'm getting repetitive, but if you draw both of these cards out in a reading, I'm so sorry, I'm yawning so much. Oh boy. If you draw both of these cards out in a reading, it can mean you're moving closer to your divine counterpart. It may also mean that there needs to be an attention on the balance of like how much you give versus how much you reserve for yourself. Um, and how much of yourself you offer to other people and how much you sort of say no and delegate tasks to other people. Um, but yeah, so when we talk about other um, divine counterparts, again, last week, the Empress had the divine counterpart of the lovers in the same way the Emperor also has that. And I talked about the lovers being sort of that yin yang energy and constantly being in flow is important, sort of to keep this balance. Like there cannot be one without the other. So if the Emperor comes out when you've got um, the Lover's card in your reading, then this is more like you need to bring the balance back by um, putting forward a little bit of that solid, firm energy. Um, Maybe asserting yourself, like I said, delegating certain things. Um, there's like a sense of authority to this. So, really like cracking down on how much energy you offer other people. Um, yeah, just like I said, being more firm in your stance on something. Um, Another counterpart to the Emperor card is the Hierophant, and the Hierophant is sort of the quote unquote masculine uh, counterpart energy of the High Priestess. So very similar again to the Empress card and its relationship with the High Priestess and sort of being like that emphasis on um, where that energy that you're offering is going and stuff, um, or coming from, where the attention is. The Hierophant, if it comes out with the Emperor card, this is sort of an encouragement to look inward as well. This is looking at um, more your core values, and it connects more to your inner world as well. So, but it sort of is in this um, it's in this way that it connects more to um, a more like it's labeled as a masculine place. I'm struggling so much to like explain this. Oh my gosh. So in the way that like intuition has often been labeled and seen as like a feminine thing, we have that link between the Empress and the High Priestess. But on the flip side, we have the Emperor and the Hierophant who have more the quote unquote masculine style, where it's kind of rooted in I don't want to say logic because I feel like even though that's the terminology that's kind of used in this comparison of like emotions versus logic, you can't really, like, you need both sides. It's the yin and yang again. So but it kind of is that, like, with the Hierophant, it is your core values and systems and um institutions and things that like create your sense of a foundation. So if it comes out together, you kind of go back to the roots of those things. Um, like there's an emphasis to look at that because it may be a little unsteady. Um, and you know, if that unsteadiness gets to a point where it's um, not a good place for you, then you may have a tower card moment where things start to crumble and you're forced to rebuild from more stable foundations. So you can kind of see how like these different pieces align and connect to maybe not prevent um, the whole thing falling apart, but definitely prepare you for the potential of it. Sort of, I guess to wrap up this, I realize this episode is shorter because we have touched on the Emperor card a little bit with the Empress card, and I think with the Lovers card as well. Um, but yeah, to round it out, the Emperor is related to the sign of Aries. It is very fiery, loves to get things started, loves to work on things passionately. Um, so if it comes out in a reading, this may be like if it comes out alone, it may be an indication of just like the energy that you're entering for a specific period of your life where you'll need to kind of take charge and you'll need to throw yourself into things and um, be an authority for yourself, be like disciplined. There's definitely an encouragement to like stand your ground with this card. And you know, if it comes out straight up just it kind of alone, it can also be an association to the like your father's side of the family. um I've definitely had situations where there's that link in a reading, and of course I say this all the friggin' time, consider the cards around it because that's really going to influence the sort of perspective that you can take when you're reading the cards. So be mindful of the cards around it. But yeah, that basically sums up the Emperor card. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. And next week, we're stepping a little bit away from the Divine Counterparts, and we're gonna jump over to another card that I guess it does have a connection because it's related to another fire sign. So tune in next week. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.